Hello students, today we'll discuss about one of the topics that comes under groups, which is finite groups and its subgroups. So the word finite itself tells us something about the countability of a set. So we'll first define order of a group. Order of a group. What should be the order of a group? It is the number of elements in a group G is called the order of G. Now we denote it by order of G. It can be finite or infinite, right? So what is order of a group? The number of elements in a group is called the order of G, and we denote it by this symbol, order of G. Now it can be finite or infinite. Now if a set contains a finite number of elements, then we say that the order of a group is finite. And if a set contains infinite number of elements, then we say that its order is infinite. Be careful while saying that a group might have countable number, the number of elements might be countable, but still they are infinite. For example, a set of integers is countable, but it is infinite. So order of Z will be infinite, right? And you can say order of Zn, which is from 0 to n minus 1 for n greater than or equal to 1. This order of Zn is finite, which is equal to n. So there might be finite ordered groups or infinite ordered groups, right? Next, since we have defined the order of a group, we'll also define the order of an element in a group. Order of an element. Okay. The order of an element G in a group is the least positive integer n such that G power n is identity. So G power n is again G star, G star, G star, G star, G. This is applying the operation on the element n times, right? So the order of an element G in a group is the least positive integer n such that G power n is identity element, right? So In additive notation, when we are using plus instead of star, we can say that it's the least positive integer such that n into g is identity, because g star g into g n times will be n g, right? So it's the least positive integer n such that n into g is identity, right? So let's take some examples of finite and infinite order groups and its elements. Zn, which is a group integers modulo n, till n minus 1. Okay, so let's consider, say, Z10 after 9. Now find out the order of 2. Its identity is 0 and operation is integers modulo n. That means the now g is equals to 2, 2, 1 is equals to 2, 2, 2 is 4 modulo 10, which is 4, 2, 3 is 6 modulo 10, which is again 6, 2, 4 is 8 modulo 10, which is again 8, 2, 6, 2, 5 is 10 modulo 10, which is 0. So order of 2 is 5, right? And going ahead, if we find out 2 power 6, 2 power 7, 2 power 8, 2 power 9, 2 power 6 will be equal to again 0. Oh, sorry. 2 power 6 will be again equal to 2. This is equal to 4, 6, and these elements will repeat. 2 power 10 is 0. So 2 power, we got that 2 power 5 is also 0, 2 power 10 is also 0, but order of 2 will be 5 because we defined that the order of an element is the least positive integer such that 2 power n is 0. So which is 5. So 5 is order. Right, so we took these examples of infinite groups and order of a group. Now let's define what is a subgroup of a group. Like we have subset of a set, similarly we have subgroup of a group. Okay, so the only difference is that subgroup will satisfy those 3 axioms. And it is also formed by a combination of a set and a binary operation. Okay, so subgroup. If a subset H of a group G is itself a group under the operation of G, then H is called a subgroup of G. right? So if we have sets and we have subsets. Now first of all, the subgroup has to be a subset of the group G. G is also a set, so we define if a subset H of a group G is itself a group under the operation of G, then H is called a subgroup of G. So if any subset is a group itself under the operation that is defined on G, then we call it a subgroup, and its symbolization is, we say that H is a subgroup of G. Now if we want to indicate that H is not equal to G, but H is a subgroup of G, okay, so we'll write it as this: H is a subgroup of G. Now the most trivial subgroup, can you think of the most trivial subgroup of a group G? I mean the smallest one which you think can be a subgroup, any subset of a group G. So we know that if a set has to be a group, it has to have identity. Let's start with, it has to be non-empty and it has to have identity. Let's start with this subset. This is a subset of G, right? Obviously associativity H, if G is associative under the operation defined on it, then H will also be associative, since all the elements of H are also elements of G. So since H is a subset of G, so it is obviously associative. We need not prove associativity. Identity element is there, right? And this identity is also the identity of G. I have considered, if E is the identity of G, I have considered this set, okay? So this has to be a subgroup of G, right? So inverse, we know that E into E is E. So E inverse is also E, right? Closure holds. Nothing to be proved in this, that this is a subgroup of G, right? All the axioms of a group are being satisfied and we don't need to prove anything. And this is called trivial subgroup of G. And any other subgroup which is not equal to this will be non-trivial. Okay? Now, since we have learnt the definition of a subgroup, we need to know that every time do we need to prove these axioms, associativity, existence of identity, existence of inverse. We have already proved it for the group. Now to prove that a particular subset of a group G is a subgroup, we have some predefined tests which are one-step subgroup test, two-step subgroup test and finite subgroup test. Anyways, we learn this step by step. We do not need to actually prove all the axioms of the group, but there are already tests present for that, and once we prove that those tests are sufficient to prove that a particular set is a subgroup, we are done. So the very first test, which is one-step subgroup test. That means while proving that a particular subset is a subgroup, there will be only one step involved. let G be a group and H is a non-empty subset of G, then H is a subgroup of G if AB inverse belongs to G for if AB inverse belongs to H for every AB belonging to H, right? In additive notation, we say that A minus B belongs to H. This is replaced by this statement. For every A, B belonging to H. Right? So this is the multiplicative notation. This is written in additive notation. So one step subgroup test says that let G be a group and H is a non-empty subset. Be careful that non-empty here is very important because even a group has to be non-empty. Right? So when we said in the definition of subgroup that if a subset of a group G is itself a group means if that is a group, that means it has to be non-empty. So let G be a group and H is a non-empty subset of G, then H is a subgroup of G if AB inverse belongs to H for every AB in H. Right? In additive notation, A minus B belongs to H for AB belonging to H. Now once we prove this, that if this condition holds, then it has to be a subgroup, then we will not need to prove those three axioms for every subset for which we are proving that it is a subgroup. We will just need to prove this condition, right? So proof is a little lengthier. Okay, so the very first thing to be proved is it is associative since H is a subset of G, therefore associativity holds. For elements of H also. Okay. So we don't need to prove the associativity axiom. Next we will prove that there is an identity element present in H, right? So since H is non-empty, clear? So this implies there exists A belonging to H. A belongs to H because it is non-empty, and when we say that we are already given that AB inverse belongs to H, this implies let replace B with A only, right? That means A inverse belongs to H. This implies E belongs to H, and we already know that E is the identity of G. This identity element is coming from G. That means the group has an identity. I applied B is equals to A here, and A into A inverse belongs to H, which implies E belongs to H. Hence we say that the identity of the group also belongs to the identity of the subgroup. Okay, so and we already know that it will commute with every element of G because it commutes with every element of G, hence it will commute with every element of H also. So we have proved the second axiom that the identity exists, right? So next we will prove the third axiom, which is existence of inverse, right, for every element. We know that AB inverse belongs to H for every AB in H, right? Since H is not empty, Therefore, there exists some A belonging to H, and we have already proved that identity also belongs to H. Now replace B with A. Put B is equals to A in this equation. We get E into A inverse belongs to H. This implies A inverse belongs to H. Okay. And this was existence of any element, existence of inverse of any element that is present. So we have proved 3 axioms, which was associativity, existence of identity, existence of inverse, right? Are we done? No, we are not done. There is one more property which is very important. We already know that G is closed under its operation star. We need to prove that H is also closed under this operation. Only then it will become a group, because when we have defined for H to be a group, it has to be closed under star. If we are saying that H is a subgroup with respect to this operation, or with respect to the operation of G, so we will prove the closure property also. For now, we have proved that associativity holds, identity exists, and inverse exists for every element in H. The last thing that needs to be proved is closure property, which says that to prove AB belongs to H for every A and B in H, right? So to prove this, now let AB belongs to H, right? We know that inverse of every element also belongs to H, implies B inverse also belongs to H, correct? Now put now this implies that A and B inverse both belong to H. Now according to that, we'll say that now we are given that whenever 2 elements belong to H, this property should hold. So A into B inverse. I have taken B as B inverse. It can be anything. I mean, I could have written B inverse as C, whatever it is, and A into B inverse replaced by B by B inverse, because B is any element. It can be B inverse. That's just a notation. It belongs to H. This implies B inverse is B. AB belongs to H, and hence closure holds. Therefore, H is a subgroup of G, right? So that was one-step subgroup test. Let's revise the definition. Let G be a group and H be any non-empty subset of G, then H is a subgroup of G if AB inverse belongs to H. For every AB in H, in additive notation, it is written like this. Next is two-step subgroup test, and we'll use this test only to prove that. That is the second test available to us. So, two-step subgroup test. Let G be a group and H is a non-empty subset of G. Then H is a subgroup if AB belongs to H for every AB belonging to H. This implies this is closed under multiplication, I mean closure holds, I mean A star B belongs to H, and A inverse belongs to H for every A belonging to H. That means closed under taking inverses. Correct? Now we will do the proof of this test. Now we know that, let's write down the condition that was AB inverse belonging to H for every AB in H, right? This was a condition that was proved in one-step subgroup test, that H was a subgroup if AB inverse belongs to H for any two elements AB in H, right? So we'll make use of that here. So we need to prove that it is a subgroup. We will prove that condition, okay? If that condition holds, that means it is a subgroup by one-step subgroup test. Let A, B belongs to H, right? Now, according to this, it is given that AB belongs to H, okay? And since B is an element in H, this implies B inverse also belongs to H. Now, A belongs to H, B inverse belongs to H, this implies AB inverse belongs to H, right? Since this holds for any two elements in G, so we say that H is a subgroup of G. So this is the two-step subgroup test. This says that if a subset is closed under multiplication and it is closed under taking inverses, that means closure holds and inverse of every element exists, then it is a subgroup of G. Most commonly we use this one-step subgroup test usually to prove that a subset is a subgroup. Next we have finite subgroup test. Okay. Let H be a non-empty finite subset of G then H is a subgroup of G if AB belongs to H for every A and D which belong to H, right? So basically closed under multiplication. Right? Now we have done two subgroup tests, one-step subgroup test and two-step subgroup test. One said that AB inverse belongs to H, the other one said that AB belongs to H and A inverse belongs to H. Let's make use of this two-step subgroup test, right? Now to prove that it is a subgroup, we can use this. First condition is already satisfied. It is given to us that closure holds closed under multiplication. One step is proved. Second step is existence of inverse. So the only thing that we need to prove is that inverse of every element exists, right? Now from let's begin. For example, if A is equals to, this is a bit lengthy proof, so I'll not write each and every step. If A is equals to E, then E inverse, right? We are saying that inverse of every element exists. Okay, so let A belongs to H. Now this can be equal to identity or this cannot be equal to identity, correct? Now if it is equal to identity, then A inverse is A, E inverse is E. So since A belongs to H, this implies A inverse also belongs to H. Now what if A is not equal to E, right? So then what will happen? Not all powers are distinct, not all values are distinct. So there exists at least one pair of numbers right, such that A power I. Why? Because H is finite. Otherwise, if A power I is not equal to A power j for every I, if for every I not equal to j, if A power I is not equal to A power j, then this will become a infinite subset of G, right? So we know that H is finite. So at least if A belongs to H, this is a subset of H, right? Since this is closed under multiplication, each of these elements belong to H, and we also know that there are at least two numbers such that A power I is equal to A power j, because if this doesn't hold, that means all of these powers are giving us distinct values, and this will become an infinite set in that case. So for at least one, it has to be A power I is equals to A power j. This implies right, and now I minus j cannot be equal to 1, because if I minus j is equals to 1, this implies A is equals to E, which we have already taken that A is not equal to E, right? So I minus j cannot be equal to 1. If it is 1, that means A is equals to E, which is not the case. We are proving for A not equal to E. So I minus j is not equal to 1. This implies I minus j is strictly greater than 1. We have assumed that I is greater than j, right? Because H is finite. So we have at least two elements which are equal in this set, because if all of the elements are distinct, then it will become an infinite subset, right? So multiply by A inverse on both sides, right hand multiplication, I minus j minus 1. Now this again, since this is again a power of A and this is strictly greater than 1, hence this implies I minus j is strictly I minus j minus 1 is strictly greater than 0. This is a positive power of A for sure. We are taking A square, A cube, A4, A5. These are all positive powers, and A power I is equals to A power j. If any two elements are equal, obviously one will have a lower power and the other one will have a greater power. We are taking I to be greater and j to be smaller, right? And the difference has to be greater than 1, because if it is 1, we have proved that it will become identity, which we do not want. So I minus j is greater than 1. Multiply both sides by a inverse. A power I minus j minus 1 is equals to a inverse, and we know that I minus j is also greater than 1. I minus j minus 1 greater than 0. Since this is a positive power of a, this implies this also belongs to h, because all powers of a belongs to, if a belongs to h, a into a belongs to h, because it is closed under multiplication. A cube belongs to h, a4 belongs to h. So any positive power of a belongs to h, that we already know by closure property. So we are saying that this power is positive, hence this belongs to h. So the inverse of this element will be a power I minus j minus 1, where I minus j minus 1 is greater than 0. So we have proved that if H is any non-empty finite subset of a group G, then H is a subgroup under the operation of G if it is closed under multiplication, right? So that was finite subgroup test, and in the next video I will be discussing special type of groups, which are center of a special type of subgroups which are center of a group, centralizer of an element in G, and a cyclic subgroup generated by an element of a group. Okay, so we'll take definitions of these subgroups in the next video, and thank you all of you for watching this video.